The world is silent, but the dough is rising. My name is Thomas, and while the knights dream of glory and the kings dream of gold, I dream of flour. The year is 1348, and here in the heart of a small English town, the night is my only companion. Before the first bell of the monastery rings for matins, I am already at my bench. My hands are white with the dust of ground wheat, a ghost in the flickering candlelight. To be a baker in the Middle Ages is to hold the heartbeat of the people in your palms. Without me, there is no strength for the plough, no energy for the sword, and no comfort for the soul. My first task is to wake the beast. My oven is a great dome of stone and clay, a cave of heat that has fed this parish for 3 generations. I feed it faggots of dried gorse and oak. The wood must be bone dry. Smoke is the enemy of good bread. I watch the stones change colour. First, they turn black with soot. Then, as the heat reaches its peak, they turn a ghostly white. That is when the beast is ready. I rake the glowing embers to the sides, sweeping the floor of the oven with a wet cloth tied to a pole. The hiss of the steam is the first song of the morning. People think a baker's life is simple, but the law of the king is as heavy as a millstone. We live under the Assize of Bread. If my loaf is too light by even the weight of a copper coin, I face the pillory. If I mix my flour with bean meal or chalk to cheat the poor, they will drag me through the streets on a hurdle with the foul loaf tied around my neck. In this year of 1348, the pressure is even greater. Rumours of a great mortality are spreading, and the price of grain is jumping like a frightened horse. The farmers are worried, and the town bailiff watches my scales like a hawk. Every loaf I shape is a contract with God and the crown. Listen to the sound of the kneading. Thump, fold, thump. It is a rhythmic dance. I use balm, the froth from the top of the brewer's ale, to make the bread rise. It carries the scent of hops and old harvests. I work the dough until it is smooth as a lady's silk. My shoulders ache, and the flour settles in the creases of my skin, making me look older than I am. But there is a peace in the repetitive motion. I shape the Maslin, a blend of wheat and rye for the common folk, and the Manchet, the pure white bread for the Lord's table. The white bread is beautiful, but it is the dark, heavy loaves that truly sustain the world. As the loaves bake, the smell begins to drift through the shutters. It is the most honest smell in the world. I sit for a moment and drink a cup of thin, watered-down cider. I think about the mill where this flour came from. The miller and I are old rivals. They say no miller is honest and no baker is thin. But as the sun begins to touch the church spire, I see the first people gathering outside. Desperate mothers, tired labourers, and wide-eyed children. They aren't just buying food, they are buying another day of life. I cross the crust of each loaf with a knife before it goes into the heat. A prayer for protection against the hunger that always stalks our doors. The last loaf is pulled from the oven. The crust is golden and singing, a soft crackling sound as it cools in the morning air. My workday is done when the rest of the world is just beginning theirs. I am Thomas, the keeper of the oven, and as I close my eyes for a few hours of sleep, I know that today my people will not go hungry. Thank you for spending this morning in the warmth of my bakery. If you found comfort in the shadows of 1348, subscribe to Medieval Workday. Next time, we shall visit the miller and discover why his wheels never stop turning. Let us speak of the grain. In 1348, flour is not just flour. It is a hierarchy of the soul. The finest wheat, bolted through silk, becomes the pandamain, the bread of our Lord. It is snow-white and reserved only for the high table of the bishop or the king. Then comes the common wheat, and below that, the Maslin, a mix of wheat and rye that most of you would recognize as the smell of a true medieval street. I spend hours sifting the bran. My lungs are perpetually coated in a fine white mist. In our trade, we call it the white lung. It is the price we pay for the air we breathe. I can tell the quality of the harvest just by the way the flour feels between my thumb and forefinger. If it is too damp, the bread will heavy. If it is too old, the bread will be bitter. A baker is a chemist of the earth, balancing yeast, water, and heat to create a miracle from dust. I am not alone in this heat. My wife, Agnes, is the one who manages the God's good, our name for the barm and yeast. She tends to the starters as if they were our children. If the starter dies, the bakery dies with it. Our children sleep on sacks of flour in the corner, their faces pale even in their dreams. Our life is governed by the bell. When the town bell rings, it tells us when we can start the fires and when the market opens. We are bound by the Guild of Bakers. The Guild is a strict parent. They decide the price we pay for grain and the price we sell our loaves. They protect us from foreign bakers from other towns, but they also fine us if our shop is dirty or our chimney is a fire hazard. In 1348, you are never an individual. You are a link in a chain of craft and tradition. My oven is not just for my bread. By noon, after my own batches are done, the common bake begins. This is when the townspeople bring their own dough or their Sunday roasts to be cooked in the residual heat. I charge a small fee, a seigneurial right, to use the heat. As they wait, the bakery becomes the heart of the town's gossip. I hear everything. I know whose daughter is marrying a carpenter, who is arguing with the tax collector, and who is terrified of the rumors coming from the docks. The heat of the oven loosens tongues. I am a keeper of secrets as much as a keeper of the flame. I see the worried faces of the elders. They talk of a black death that turns the skin dark and takes a man in 3 days. I look at my white flour and wonder if it will be enough to keep the darkness away. Why do we cross the bread? It is more than just a mark of the baker. In the 14th century, we believe that the air is full of small demons that wish to spoil the rising dough. The sign of the cross locks the spirit of the bread inside. I also make clyat, small decorative rolls that I give to the poor at the end of the day. It is my tithe to the church and my insurance against bad luck. We are a superstitious lot, we bakers. We never sweep the oven floor on a Friday, and we always leave a small piece of dough behind for the hearth spirits. It may seem foolish to you, but when your entire life depends on a fire that could burn the whole town down, You learn to respect the invisible forces of the world. By the time the sun is high, my strength is spent. The heat has drained the moisture from my bones. I wash my face in a wooden basin, watching the water turn milky with flour. My clothes are stiff with dry dough, a second skin that I only shed on Sundays. I walk out into the street. The air feels shockingly cold, even in the height of summer. I see the miller's cart approaching with fresh sacks. We will argue about the weight. We will complain about the king's new taxes. And then we will do it all again. I go to my bed while the rest of the town is at its loudest. The smell of the morning's bake still clings to my hair. I am the man who feeds the village, the silent partner of every meal. I am the baker, and the fire in my stone oven is the sun that never sets on the hungry. When the sun is finally up, the quiet of the night is replaced by the roar of the market. I do not just bake, I sell. My shop window, a simple wooden shutter that folds down into a counter, is where I meet the world. Who buys my bread? Everyone, from the monk who needs a simple rye loaf for his monastery to the mother who has saved 3 silver pennies for a Manchet to celebrate a baptism. I also have contracts. I deliver large baskets of coarse brown bread to the local almshouse and the town jail. In 1348, bread is the primary currency of survival. Many laborers are paid not only in coin, but in board, which means a place to sleep and their daily bread. If I fail to bake, the city's economy stutters. I see the wealthy merchants in their fur-lined robes, and I see the beggars with their hollow eyes. To my oven, they are all the same. They all feel the same pang of hunger when the grain is scarce. You might wonder if a baker ever laughs. Life is hard, yes, but we find our joy where we can. On feast days, like the Feast of St. Clement, the patron of blacksmiths and metalworkers, or our own guild days, the ovens stay cold for a few hours. We gather in the town square. There are travelling minstrels, puppet shows, and the occasional bear baiting. We play football, not the organised game you might know, but a wild, chaotic surge of men through the streets, kicking a leather bladder stuffed with hay. It is violent, messy, and wonderful. We drink ale that is much stronger than the small ale we use at work, and for a moment we forget the heat of the forge and the dust of the flour. We dance to the sound of the pipe and tabor, our heavy boots thumping on the cobblestones, celebrating the simple fact that we are alive for another season. But the laughter is often a mask for fear. In 1348, we are at the mercy of the sky. A wet summer means ergot in the rye, a fungus that makes people mad and blackens their limbs with St. Anthony's fire. I have seen neighbours dancing in the streets, not from joy, but from the poison in their bread. Winter is our greatest enemy. When the rivers freeze, the watermills stop. When the mills stop, I have no flour. I have seen winters so cold that the dough froze in the bowls before it could rise. During these times, the price of a loaf can triple, and I must stand at my window and tell hungry children that I have nothing left to give. It is a weight on the heart that no furnace can melt. We live on a knife's edge between plenty and famine. How much is a loaf worth? In your time, it is a commodity. In mine, it is a holy object. We never waste a crumb. If a piece of bread falls on the floor, we pick it up and kiss it, asking God for forgiveness. Bread is the body of Christ, and every person in this town understands that. The wealthy use stale, flat bread called trenchers as plates. They pile their meats and sauces on top of the bread, and at the end of the meal, the juice-soaked trenchers are given to the poor or the dogs. Nothing is lost. Even the sweepings of my flour bin are sold to the pig farmers. We are a world of cycles where every grain is counted and every calorie is a victory over the grave. As I bank the fire for the last time today, I look at the soot on my walls. They say that 1348 is a year of change. The travelers say the world is ending. But as long as the wheat grows and the fire burns, there will be a need for the baker. I am the bridge between the field and the table. I take a small piece of warm crust, the baker's portion, and eat it in the silence of my shop. It is crunchy, salty, and life-giving. I am Thomas. I am the servant of the wheat. And as the evening bells ring, I prepare to sleep, so I can wake before the stars fade and start the miracle of the bread once more. Thank you for walking the cobblestones of 1348 with me. If you felt the heat of the oven and the weight of the history, subscribe to Medieval Workday. Next time, we shall visit the miller, the man who turns the wind and water into the dust of life.